You're listening to the Travis Makes Money podcast presented by GoHighLevel.com. For a free 30-day trial of the best all-in-one digital marketing software tool on the planet, just go to GoHighLevel.com/Travis. What's going on, money makers? Welcome back to the Travis Makes Money podcast, where it's our mission to help you make more money. If you're new to the show, we release brand new conversations with unconventional money makers 7 days a week. So if you have not yet, please be sure to go to your podcast app of choice right now, follow the show, subscribe to the show so you never miss an opportunity to learn how to make more money. Today on the show, we're actually going to be talking about recovery with my new friend, Brice Hancock. Brice is the CEO of Mile High Recovery Center in Denver, Colorado. Brice is a musician, booking agent, and club owner, and was dying from alcoholism. He got sober back in 2013 and opened Mile High Recovery Center in 2016, grew the business from nothing to seven figures, and currently helps hundreds each year recover from addiction and alcoholism. This is going to be a really interesting, good conversation. It's funny the way that Brice and I initially connected. I'm sure we'll get into that in the show. But in the meantime, Brice, what's up, dude? Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me, Travis.
Well, let's start off with a back in time question here, man. Tell me how you made your first dollar ever.
All right. So I grew up on a horse farm, and my grandfather was raised in the deep South, and he was a hard worker. And so my dad was a hard worker. So when I was a kid, they put me to work shoveling manure.
Nice.
I would get a quarter per wheelbarrow of horse manure.
A quarter per wheelbarrow. So your first dollar was 4 wheelbarrows of horse
Four
manure.
wheelbarrows. And we would just take the money and ride down the street on our bikes and buy candy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It was what else you're going to buy, you know?
I didn't know what else to buy, and I don't even know what else there was back then. But yeah, it was a hardworking environment, and work was like definitely promoted to me at an early age.
So tell me how you made your most recent dollar now, Brice.
Okay, so what? 4 decades later, 5 decades later, I own a treatment center here in Denver, Colorado, called Mile High Recovery Center. It's an inpatient treatment center with all levels of outpatient care, and I think 6 or 7 sober houses.
Wow. Awesome. Good for you, man.
Thanks.
So the initial connection point, because I opened that loop at the beginning of this, it was so funny. And neither one of us can remember the post. I should have tried to look it up before we jumped on here so I could read them. I'm sure it would be entertaining, but I think it was a post of mine that for some reason, there was some person on there that was getting really upset about something that I said. And then Brice kind of came on and was just randomly commenting. And we didn't follow each other. We didn't know each other. It was just kind of the algorithm picked it up and showed it to Brice for whatever reason. And then Brice kind of commented and was like, "Hey, you're being a little ridiculous." And because this guy was one of those just insane people. It was just like, what your argument here is not making any sense at all. And then all of a sudden Brice started getting heat from this guy. And of course, this guy's not up to anything. I go to his profile. He's not doing anything. And I go to Brice's profile and be like, oh, he's running a recovery center. And then this guy actually goes and gives you shit for like trying to profit off of people's weakness or something like that. And I was like, wait a second. So this guy starts a business to help solve a crazy problem that the government is absolutely not doing anything to solve. And you're going to trash him because of the business model. This is insane. So I started defending Brice, and then we started following each other. And I was like, hey, come on the show so we can talk about the recovery center. It was just a super funny way to connect with somebody.
It was right after the election. I think he was, still mad. He was like super liberal, and
had to be
assuming you were super right. And
that's right. Yeah, that is what it was. Yeah, because I don't post political opinions online. I keep everything pretty neutral. And I it must have posted something with somebody that was on the right or something, because I'll interview people, like I'll have people on the left, I'll have people on the right. But anytime somebody sees me interview somebody on the right, they just assume I'm on the right. And anytime somebody sees me interview somebody on the left, they just assume I'm on the left. And I'm just like, I just like having conversations with a lot of different people from different backgrounds. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think you're totally right. He was Mr. Salty in the comments.
Yeah, then he kind of came at me, and I said, look, I have no reason to justify or defend myself to somebody on Instagram. I rarely even comment on social media because of that reason.
Yeah, it's so funny, man. I just thought it was a really unique way to connect with somebody. It was like, oh, we're just getting berated by some loser in the comments, in the comment section, who's trying to tear down people who are actually trying to do things that help people, which I thought was super interesting. I was like, how are you mad at the guy running a treatment facility because he was trying to solve his own problem of alcoholism? This is insane. But that's the nature of the internet these days, man. People can be upset about anything for whatever reason and have no justification for their reasoning and still feel good about it somehow.
Yeah. I figured he probably can justify it, and that's why he feels, I don't know, okay doing that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, either way, I appreciate you for coming on, and it was good to connect with you. You know, there's always good things that come out of bad things. So let's talk a little bit about the journey. So you were musician, booking agent, and club owner, which is basically the alcoholic's dream job.
Yeah.
What was it? Was it which one came first, the chicken or the egg in this scenario?
So I was just a chronic entrepreneur. I didn't like working for people. And so I was playing music and we were touring a lot and playing around here in Colorado mostly. And then so I was booking my band. And then I started booking other people's bands. And then I was putting together shows together as an outside promoter. And then I started working at some clubs and I was pretty good at it. And so I got a job at the biggest club in the area. And then a guy from the club that I quit said, "Do you want to buy this club? You want to buy this bar?" And I said, "Sure, but I don't have any money." And he said, "I'll carry the loan for you, dude. I got to get out of this industry." And so lo and behold, holy crap, I own a bar, full blown alcoholic, drug addict. And now I'm the owner of a bar. And so that got bad, as you can imagine.
Yeah,
And
it's like a fat guy with a donut shop.
it was just not a good job
Yeah.
for an alcoholic. And so 7 years into it, I'm having all these health problems. I'm totally, basically mentally ill, and I'm drinking myself to death. Like I'm waking up and drinking. I'm drinking all day long, and the doctor tells me, he says, your liver enzymes are off the chart. Your pancreas is stressed. Your liver is stressed. I can't believe your heart hasn't stopped. I give you a year to live if you don't stop drinking.
Wow.
Yeah. And I could not stop drinking. I drank for well over a year. And I think what happened is eventually I was just so close to like this nervous breakdown that I started going to started going to a 12-step program, Alcoholics Anonymous. And
Around
yeah,
what age were you at this time?
well, I was in my 40s.
Dang, man.
I got sober in 2013. So it was late to the party. But I got sober. I eventually had my nervous breakdown. I ended up on a psych ward. I got out of there. I went to outpatient treatment and AA, Alcoholics Anonymous.
Mm.
I still go and sobered up, sold the bar, ended up getting divorced, and got my real estate license.
What was the divorce as a result of the change in who you were, or
Yeah,
was it?
it was kind of like I had to get sober. It was either sober up or die.
Mm.
And I don't blame her for this, but she didn't sign up for that. She didn't sign up to marry a sober guy.
Sure. Yeah.
And whether she had a drinking problem or wanted to keep partying or whatever it was, we're good friends now. We actually have a son together. So things work out the way they're supposed to, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
So I ended up living in the mountains by myself, going to AA meetings. I was working at an H&R Block, and I had my real estate license, and I was doing that. And it was definitely a step up from where I had been.
Yeah. No
But
kidding.
it wasn't my passion. I like the big checks, don't get me wrong, but doing real estate, selling real estate, and helping buyers is not my passion.
Yeah.
And so I was in therapy, I was struggling, sober, and she challenged me. She said, what's your purpose? And I was like, what are you talking about? My purpose? I'm a realtor, And she said, no, what lights you up? Like
Yeah. I
what?
didn't ask how you make money. I asked for purposes. Yeah.
Right. I had never really thought about what my purpose was. And so that challenge turned into a whole journey, like a whole awakening for myself. I started to ask myself questions like, who am I as a sober man? Who do I love? Who loves me? What do I
Mm.
want to do? Like I said earlier, what lights me up and what makes me lose track of time?
Yeah.
And I love alcoholics and drug addicts. I I love those people. Those are my people. And so I opened up a sober house through this odd series of events. Someone said we need sober houses, and I didn't really even know what it was, but I knew I was going to do it. So I opened a sober house. My depression lifted, and I was having so much fun that I opened another house and another house. And lo and behold, I have a new career on my hands.
So sober house meaning like this is where people come for rehab to get
Yeah.
away from alcohol.
So basically, in the continuum of care, which is how we get well in the behavioral health space, whether it's addiction or alcoholism, you go to treatment for 30 days, and then often people will go right home, and their chances of staying clean and sober are very slim. And so they'll go back to treatment. And then what they're supposed to do, or what is suggested, is that they go to a sober living house after treatment, and they stay there for a unspecified period of time.
To increase their odds of success, basically.
Increases your odds. That's where the real magic happens, in my opinion, is sober house, because
Yeah.
you're in a group of peers. You find your tribe. You go through life's daily struggles, and you are supported. You get accountability, and we drug test you. We make sure you go to meetings. There's house meetings, and you become part of this sober community.
Yeah, that purpose thing has got to be tied to the success rate significantly in some regard. The problem is that like finding your purpose isn't as easy as just like listening to a podcast or reading a book and then walking away being like, I found it.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a therapy session and a half and then you're done.
Nope.
It's like a continuous process that happens over the course of your life. But it seems to be like the problem that I've seen with traditional methods of solving these issues is that they look at the addictive personality like it's a problem, and it's like, to me, that's not the problem. Having an addictive personality is not the problem, and it can serve you in a tremendous way. Like what you've seen now in your business is like you've become addicted to helping people. You've become obsessed with the purpose that you feel in life. But the difference is obsessing over your purpose and being addicted to that purpose is what brings happiness, joy, fulfillment, and long-term satisfaction in life. Whereas being addicted to a substance is the opposite effect. So how much of your work is tied to helping people try to figure out like, hey, what's the new thing I can be addicted to where it would be somewhat healthy, where it's like, and maybe calling it addiction is a bad thing is a bad way to label it. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it seems to me that some of the people who do the biggest things in life, in the world, in culture, they're maniacal about their work ethic on this thing because they feel such a deep connection to pushing that cause forward.
Yeah. So for me, it was kind of like, alcohol and drugs were my problem, but they really weren't. They were my solution. My problem was I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. I had all this, childhood trauma and things that were wrong with me, and I never felt comfortable. I had this complete inability to connect with other people, and alcohol solved that for me until it didn't. And then, so what they say is you need a sufficient substitute for the substance that you're taking. And so for me, it's like you said, I'm addicted to the miracle of people getting better. Like I love it. I love watching people do that. And a lot of us will become therapists. That's not what I'm good at, right? And so I needed to find my way. And so what I did is I set up a company, a place where people could find their own magic the way that I had found magic.
Yeah.
But I'm not emotionally attached to them finding that. I hope that they do, and a lot of people do, but then again, a lot of people don't.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the idea too of entrepreneurs solving these problems because they're just done more efficiently, which is why like a comment from that guy like irritated me so much, because these are the people who just think that the government's going to step in and solve all their problems. And that's just not how it works. And it seems like anytime the government gets involved, there's just insane waste, insane bloat. They have nobody to report to. There's no accountability in how the funds are spent. It's like when you're a private entrepreneur running a company, you have to run it in a better, more efficient way that solves a real problem, or you will not stay in business because the market will not reward a crappy model. So I love the idea of entrepreneurs getting involved in solving these problems, whether it's homelessness, addiction, things like that, or it's healthcare, or some things that we've traditionally like looked at as being like the government's the solution to the problem. It's like I basically believe it's almost never the government that's going to be the solution to the problem. It's going to be private enterprise. It's going to be entrepreneurs coming in and figuring out how can we solve this thing for people.
I agree. Like a lot of these like nonprofits, and I'm not going to bag on nonprofits, but what they'll do is they'll get a grant, let's say for $1 million, and then they have to spend that $1 million, wisely, and they have to be accountable for it. They're not always.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go. My business was one house at a time, one client at a time,
Yep.
and I had to endure maximum financial pain.
Right.
And but it was one thing at a time. And so for me, I didn't start out to become a large residential treatment center. I started off because I wanted to help people. And so for me, it was like take one step forward, let the universe rearrange the way it's supposed to, and then I just followed the path organically.
Mm.
And
At what point did you make the switch from real estate to the recovery centers full time?
pretty quickly, I would say I did real estate. I mean, I still have my real estate license because in case somebody wants, my
Yeah.
help, I'm happy
Right.
to do it. And I'm also dealing with real estate, in my business. But I'd say I did that for about a year,
Okay.
cold calling people, doing the whole thing. But I was, like I said, I was depressed. I was at this, it was like a dark night of the soul type of crossroads for me where I had to live the truth or I wasn't going to be able to live anymore.
Yeah, right. That's a very fair point to bring up, man. It's tough when you're dealing with these types of mental health issues where you don't see a way out, and then you take away the only salve that was helping you. I mean, in your mind, you thought it was helping you
Yeah.
because it helped decrease the pain. It helped numb the pain for a little bit. When in reality, it just pushes you further and further down that dark, inescapable hole. And then when you stop using all those substances, all it does is make you hyper aware of the terrible negative state that you're in constantly. It doesn't actually, like, getting off the substances isn't necessarily a solution to the problem. There's a bunch of other problems that you have to work on, but the work starts when you stop dealing with the short-term solution to the problem and start thinking about the long-term solution to the problem.
Yeah. Drinking was my only tool. And when you take that away, like what am I left with?
Yeah.
Me going to depression, anxiety, no sense of purpose, feeling very disconnected. And I had to sit in that and I had to work on myself,
Yeah.
you know,
Sit in
which
that.
is,
That's the tough part, man. That's
yeah,
tough. Those
because
sleepless
no one's
nights.
coming to save you, right? Like that's, back to that guy. No one's coming to save us, right? The government's not going to save us. Like it's up to us. We got to take responsibility for our own life, our own happiness, our own future. And so when I did that, it was hard at first, right? But then eventually, like magical things can happen when you take responsibility for your own life.
Yeah. And start thinking about the
Yeah.
long term, like that's the whole thing, is like, how long are you going to keep doing this short-term solution?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
for
and
the
then I
rest of
got,
your life? It just doesn't pencil out.
well, some people do. Alcoholism and addiction claims lots of lives, right?
Yeah.
But for me, the secret is helping other people, giving back what was freely given to me,
Hmm.
and because it's good for my sobriety.
Do you think that everybody should be sober?
No,
Okay, tell me
no,
about that.
I don't. I'm an alcoholic. I have a disease, right? Once I have a sip of alcohol, something happens. I can't stop. Um, my father, for instance, he can have a beer at the end of the day. He can even have 3 or 4 beers and it erase like a stressful day. I can't do that.
Hmm.
Can't drink safely. Um, and so I would never think that people shouldn't be able to enjoy their lives. I got sober to enjoy my life.
Got it. It's more of a clarity and case by case basis, and figure out what's
Absolutely.
going to work for you.
For people like me, abstinence is the only way. For some
Yeah.
reason, I can't have a sip of alcohol. Something happens to me inside my body that doesn't happen to other people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Brice, I appreciate you coming on and being willing to share freely some of these things. I like I said, I love the concept of entrepreneurial ventures solving real societal problems like this. Congrats to you on the success. Congrats to you on the sobriety, on the discipline that it takes to be 12 years sober now, and then helping so many other people get out of that same cycle of addiction. My wife and I have lost, people close to us from this type of a thing at really young ages, and it's terrible to see. So I appreciate you for stepping into the gap there. And I also, just as an aside, I've been thinking a lot about businesses that allow you to secure real estate, but without real estate being the core purpose of that business. So I love the concept too of some of these like sobriety centers, where it gives you the ability to, as an entrepreneur, you make cash flow from the business, but you can also secure real estate. That's a really, really cool business model. So thanks for coming on and sharing. Where can people go to get more from you, Brice?
MileHighRecoveryCenter.com.
MileHighRecoveryCenter.com. Go check out some of the stuff that Brice is putting out. If you're in that area, go check out the actual facilities that he has, and support the local businesses, support the people who are actively trying to make a real difference in the world, because that's how we actually do this thing. It starts with us on an individual, personal responsibility basis. So, Brice, thanks for doing this. Everybody else listening, remember, money will only solve your money problems, but it's a little bit easier to solve the rest of your problems if you got a little bit of money in the bank. So let's solve that problem first here on the Travis Makes Money podcast. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Catch you next time. Peace out.
Steps.